Welcome everyone to What the Force, and welcome to a fun episode where me and my good friend Hammy are gonna revisit Reylo.
Yay! Everyone get excited.
Well, it has been 2.5 years, right? Since we saw them on the big screen.
I was going to say since we all had our hearts broken.
Well, yeah. I mean, I was trying to be positive. Thanks. But no, it's great. We wanted to just be like, hey, checking in. What's going on? And surprisingly, there's been a lot? Question mark?
Yeah, more than maybe what we expected coming out of The Rise of Skywalker. I thought it would be, radio silence for a while. So
you being a fan that came in with the sequel trilogy, this is like your Star Wars too.
Yeah. So I definitely feel the drought when we don't have content. Every other fandom is getting fed except the sequel trilogy. Yeah. I am sympathetic though to it because I know everyone kind of had to take a break, right? After the original trilogy, there was a break after the prequels, after Clone Wars, every release gets a little bit of a break before the next thing. So
the prequels, I think they didn't really start exploring stuff except for the Clone Wars cartoon for many years. Like it was over 3 years.
Yeah.
So.
And obviously now we're kind of in a resurgence with the prequels with Kenobi coming up and everything. So I think it's just in the air right now.
Yeah, it is.
For the prequels.
Yeah. So how are you feeling about Reylo 2.5 years after TROS?
I'm feeling okay. And I guess I should split it up. Fandom wise, I'm feeling great. I love that everyone's still on Twitter, in the communities. I know people use other social media too, that we've got Reylos on Facebook, on Instagram, all of that. So I'm feeling good fandom wise. I think I was worried that everyone was going to leave after The Rise of Skywalker. And I know many people have left the fandom and found new things to love and all of that. But it's funny when a new crumb drops, everyone comes running in to check in and see what's going on. So it's kind of like we always have this dependable family online that we can go to and yell about Reylo with. So that's nice. And then in terms of canon, I feel like I haven't been discouraged yet about the future of Reylo, about Rey's future or Ben Solo's separately together. I'm feeling okay about their future.
It's bizarre, although like they really haven't shut the door. Like I would have expected them to be like, and that was the end of that story at some point.
Because going into The Rise of Skywalker, it was pretty cut and dry that this is the final episode, and obviously they did that for Return of the Jedi and then the prequels. It's always the last Star Wars, but we all kind of really went into The Rise of Skywalker. I think maybe that's also why we were affected so emotionally, because we took them at their word that it's the end of the saga. And I think if you ask most Star Wars fans right now, they probably would say, oh yeah, give it a couple of years. We're going to get an episode 10.
Yeah. And even if it's not like the end of the Skywalker saga again, like, or telling more stories, it might be that they continue it on in like a Disney Plus story or an animation or something. I don't know. It's weird.
Like we said, there hasn't been a ton of content. I guess each iteration of content that is coming out, they're kind of dipping back into the sequel trilogy. It's not like they're totally forgetting about it. We're kind of returning to the characters. We'll go into it in detail in the rest of the podcast, but
yeah. And I think it's good, I guess. I'm hesitantly optimistic about the future is the best way I can say it. And again, I've said this since, we did our TROS deep dives after TROS in the month after. We did a bunch of stuff. And I said, like, all that it takes is Star Wars deciding to bring him back and it's done. Like, he'll be back. And
yeah, they just need to, they just need to have all the stars align.
Yeah.
In terms of literally the stars, the actual cast members. And then also, matching it up with a creator who's ready to tackle the story and who's willing to take risks and get back into the sequel trilogy. I think in terms of the fans, I think we're all hungering for it. We kind of want to know what happens next for Rey.
Yeah.
Even not just singling her out, but because of course we love like all the rest of the characters, but it doesn't feel like her journey is over. And I don't think even the biggest fans who say that Ben's dead and he's never coming back, I think even they would say, oh yeah, no, I mean, obviously Rey continues on with more adventures.
Yeah, exactly. And there is more to say, I think, with her, because it didn't feel like maybe she got where she needed to go. As much as maybe that was the end of that story, which I guess ended, truthfully, the Skywalkers, I guess.
Right.
Right? It even feels a little bit like Star Wars didn't really know what to do with the end, you know?
Yep.
Like once it was out there. And like to this year, so 2.5 years later, every couple of months, I get an email, like a written email thanking me for my Tross episode.
Well, you know, for me personally, I definitely listened to it and cried in the car while listening. And well, I think you guys were crying, and then I also was crying as a listener. So I don't know. It was really much needed. Like, I think I went back, especially that first year after The Rise of Skywalker, I think I must have gone back at least 2 or 3 times and just listened to the episodes, because it just felt really, that was the one thing that I was really grateful for after The Rise of Skywalker, was the community that we've built, because it felt like, okay, we're not the only ones who felt this way about the story and these characters. We cared so deeply about them, and we kind of wanted this future that was just their own. It didn't feel that way to a lot of us. It felt very much like we were still hanging on to the past, and not moving forward with the new characters that we like love so much. So it's really healing when we can listen to your episode or episodes, I should say, because it was like a 3-part episode, and know that other people are feeling the same way that they were going through those emotions like us. And it wasn't just a blip on the radar.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I hear from people, which is that they felt like they were alone, or they felt like they, like, especially in their family and friend group, their social group, when they were like, this meant something to me, and then like being told, but it's just fiction. Like, why do you care? And like, yeah, those feelings were valid.
Even myself, in my friend group, a very good number of my friends are Star Wars fans and would call themselves Star Wars fans. They keep up with everything. They watch Mandalorian, they watch Boba Fett, they watch everything. And I don't think even they really understood the depth. I think they could see it. I think they could see it on my face, and they don't bring it up. they know not to. They knew, at least in that first year, not to bring up Ben Solo. But I think it's hard not to be able to talk to someone about all of those feelings and to hold on to something, because we do love Star Wars in general too a lot. Speaking about Reylo, it's very common to try and separate us from the rest of fandom. Oh, if you're a Reylo, then you're not a Star Wars fan.
A true Star Wars fan.
It's the underlying tone that I get from everyone outside of Reylo fandom, that they're kind of engaging with me, not as a Star Wars fan, but as a Reylo. And so, it's just something that I've observed.
And I don't think that they need to be separate. Like I personally was a Star Wars fan long before Rey or Kylo existed, and I'm also a Reylo, and I also love the story in general, right? And I think that Reylo just helped me understand Star Wars in a new way, and explore it in depthly in a new way, and care about different aspects of it in a new way, and like, I'll forever be grateful for what that gave me, which is
definitely, I think
lenses.
That's literally, I literally was about to say that. Because since you're an older Star Wars fan, not in terms of age, of course, just in terms of when you came into the fandom, but since I came in during The Last Jedi, Reylo just provided a lens for me to look at the rest of Star Wars, because after binging the movies, then I went back and watched Clone Wars, Rebels. I started reading all of the books. I started doing all of that exploring, and it was always with Reylo as like my lens into it, because I was thinking about the Force and what it means for two people to be connected in the Force, and the dark side, the light side, everything was kind of thrown through that, shown to me through that lens. And so that's why when The Rise of Skywalker happened, it wasn't just about Reylo or just about Ben Solo dying. It was about something we cared about, the entire franchise, all of their relationship and everything that happens with them was meant to connect to the larger saga. It was supposed to have an impact on the galaxy in canon, and then also outside of canon. As a Star Wars fan, you're meant to feel for their story because it's the end of the saga. So it was a kind of a double whammy to have to go through that pain of, being sad about The Rise of Skywalker, but then also sad for the entire story too. Yeah.
And as I look at the story as a larger picture, if you end the saga on a happy ending, you can go anywhere in the past and put us through hell, and we'll be happy about it. If you end the saga on this weird ambivalent note, nothing feels ended, you know? So
no, I totally agree. And I think for many, I don't want to speak obviously for every single Reylo fan, but for many Reylo fans, it's hard to go back with new content that's coming out. It's just such a contrast between before the rise of Skywalker, the way that we would all engage with new content that was coming out of Star Wars versus afterwards. And it's not out of bitterness for Ben Solo dying. It's not just about that. It's about the greater story of what does this all mean in the grander scheme of things. And so if it all goes to that endpoint of them being separated, Rey and Kylo being separated, and Rey kind of on this note about not, at least in our opinion, she hasn't really completed her journey of what it means to be a Jedi for herself, separated from the legacies that have been legacies plural with Palpatine's legacy and the Luke Skywalker's legacy, all of it.
Leia, right?
Yeah,
like they're all in there.
Everything being on her shoulders since it kind of ended their story, not her story, Rey's story. We can't help but want more from that. And we can't help but think, okay, well, yeah, we could go and watch Mando, but it's just hard not to let go of those feelings, knowing where it all goes in the future of the story.
Yeah. And everything sort of compiles upon itself when you're dealing with the past, unless it's so far in the past that things don't necessarily affect the present. Right. And they haven't gone that far back because there's literally people who are alive in the High Republic that are alive in the Skywalker saga. So, i.e. Yoda.
Right. Of course.
Right.
Yes.
So, you know, there's just a level that we're going to have to like take a step back and like wait for them to do something truthfully with that material and see what happens. But let's dig into a little bit of the canon stuff that's come out since Tross that has touched on either Rey or Ben and what that has meant, I guess.
Yeah, so we're going to try and go a little bit in order. First thing probably that came out right after The Rise of Skywalker is the Visual Dictionary by Pablo Hidalgo. That came out first. And in that, I didn't really want to go into it too much because it was so soon after The Rise of Skywalker. But the main thing from there related to Rey and Kylo is they do discuss the dyad. That's our first instance where we hear that the dyad is elevated above time and space.
And they also talk about how Exegol is a world between worlds.
Yes, it's a vergence in the Force. And so, and we also get hints in the Visual Dictionary about that the Sith doctrine also mentioned the dyad, that it's like a double prophecy, that the Jedi have heard of it and then the Sith have also heard of it.
It's like they built escape hatches in the Visual Dictionary.
Yes.
Isn't that weird?
Really, though. Yeah, so I have the incantation. So the Visual Dictionary includes a Sith eternal incantation carved into the old Sith ruins on Exegol that denotes the nature of the dyad. And what it says in the Visual Dictionary is that, curiously, it is nearly identical to text describing the Rule of Two Sith doctrine as well. And so it's kind of interesting to think about. And so what we saw in The Rise of Skywalker, of course, was the light side of a dyad, the way that they came together. And so this is saying that, you know, this would be the dark side version of the dyad that Palpatine was trying to make. And it's cool that to me that it's really significant that the dyad and that kind of, even though it's just, as always, a crumb of information coming through the Visual Dictionary. The reason that's kind of important to me is because I feel like this was probably a story group concept. No one hold that to me, but that's just my theory, is that I feel like it maybe didn't come from J.J. Abrams, and it probably was maybe a larger story group concept that was being thrown around and then they delved into. That would just be my guess. At least that's the way it seems.
There is no way that Chris Terrio would have used the words world between worlds.
Yeah.
So there's definitely stuff in the Visual Dictionary that like gives us a quote unquote out if they decide to use it. It's like they built escape hatches or different concepts around it that enable them to, I don't know, continue the story if they wanted to.
We're beating around the bush, but basically what it is, the main big theory that's kind of going around in the Reylo fandom is that Exegol is one of the nexus points for the world between worlds. There's a picture again in the Visual Dictionary of the Jedi text, and you can see branches, circles and branches, branching out that show that the world between worlds isn't just one thing. It's not just the entrance that Ezra went through. There can be many vergences, that maybe perhaps Octo is also a vergence in the Force, that, that there's all these hints that, okay, it's not just that one entrance that Ezra went through. And so with that being said, if someone were to pass into the Force in Exegol, maybe they could come back. And as MC has covered many times in her World Between Worlds episode, that's just the Force. The World Between Worlds is the Force. It's going into the Force. It's, it's entering your... You
are now part of the Force.
Exactly.
So if there's exits, then there's exits, right? And we know that there are.
Yes.
So
there's also a little bit of misconception, I think, when people assume that everything is going to happen exactly the way it did for Ahsoka, that she was just kind of yanked in the timeline.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, when they theorize about the dyad and the world between worlds, we want something totally new and unique to the dyad.
I want it to be weird.
Yeah, weird Force stuff that we haven't seen before. And it's not necessarily like that Rey is pulling Ben out of the timeline before he gets killed. Like, that doesn't make sense. That he made his sacrifice for her. I think a lot of us we've come to terms with that. He made the sacrifice for her, and that was good. That's on the light side. And so anything that happens in the future would be after that fact. But because they have this connection, and because the world between worlds exists, there might be some other way, because through their connection, that they would be able to bridge the gap between each other.
To me, it'd be like sort of like an Ariadne string, pulling him out of the darkness of the maze that he's in.
Yes, exactly.
Right? And I would actually like to see him quite tortured and her pull him back. So very, going to the underworld to bring your loved one back. That would be very mythic and cool, and would give us a lot of food to be like, hey, this is an awesome concept and story to dig into. So we'll see. I mean, it's all there that they could do it.
Yes, it's definitely there. And it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to go back to Exegol. There's so many vergences that could be somewhere else. It's just that we think that he could have been thrown into one.
There is no difference in the Force.
Yes,
so
exactly.
It literally could be anywhere else.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
the next one.
Yeah, go ahead.
And it is the next one is the Tross novelization.
I was just going to briefly touch on this. Obviously, there are a lot of cute moments in the novelization. There's one part where Rey is thinking in her head that she wants to tell Ben Solo to go kiss a Rathtar because he's annoying her as Kylo, and so it always just makes me think of the Han and Leia scene where she's telling him, what does she tell him to go kiss?
Go kiss a Wookiee?
Yeah, kiss a Wookiee. So it just always reminds me of that. Sorry, I'm not an original trilogy fan, so I can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, it always reminds me of that. There's one part, I think, when Ben is thinking about telling Rey that they're a dyad. He's like, I want to see what it looks like on her lovely face when she learns the truth. Yeah. There's a lot, and of course the kiss is there.
There's a lot of angst.
Yes, it's really good. But the one part that I wanted to bring up, because we are talking about Reylo 2.5 years later and possibly in the future, is that when Ben goes into the Force, he says to Rey before he leaves, which isn't in the film but is in the novelization, so added afterwards, I'll always be with you, which of course means a lot, and it kind of is confirmation to many of us that he's not fully gone. He's always with her.
Said that to Luke, so it has that echoing of that feeling. But if they're a dyad, it has to be cooler than just Ben and Luke Skywalker.
Yes, exactly. And because the buildup through the novelization, obviously with their connection, it always feels so strong the way that it's described in the novelization. When Rey can't feel Ben, she says it feels like half of her soul is gone. There's a lot of imagery and for both of them, it's just like that connection is so deep, and it's not anything that we've seen before in Star Wars. So something's, him saying, I'll always be with you. It just holds a lot more weight than just a master and a Padawan.
Just crazy old Ben from the deserts of Tatooine. No, I'll always be with you, Luke. Okay. Showering. Yeah. What's next?
Okay, so next is the Rise of Kylo Ren comics. So we're going kind of in order after the Rise of Skywalker. Obviously, the Rise of Kylo Ren by Charles Soule, illustrated by Will Sliney. It was constant Ben Solo content for 4 comics. We learned a lot of things about Ben, about his past, but the main thing that I kind of wanted to touch on with the future is that when Ben falls, there is a Force bond connection between young Rey, you see her and Unkar Plut. She's on Jakku and he's falling. Ben is falling and he's killing Ren to become Kylo Ren. And she says, "Oh, do you feel that? It feels cold." And then Unkar is like, "I don't feel anything because we're in a desert." So it's very clear that she feels that. And
we're literally on Jakku.
Yes,
like
exactly. So
are you sick, girl?
but what's cool about the panel though is because Leia also feels it in that moment, and so it's so significant that the two people that feel it, other than obviously like Snoke and Palpatine, Snoke/Palpatine, I guess, who are kind of pulling the strings on all of this, the two people who matter in Ben's life are the ones that are included in the panel, and it's Leia and Rey, of course.
Yeah.
What that kind of also confirms for many Reylos, especially the Force Awakens Reylos, is that the connection's always been there.
Yeah.
Obviously a theory that we haven't had confirmed until this comic.
Yeah. And it was, Snoke, like, I bridged your minds. Well, no, actually.
It's always been there. It's always
been there. Yeah. It just made, like, I always treated it when we were in TLJ times, like, oh, maybe Snoke, like, added, like, the voltage so that they actually started communicating.
Yeah.
More.
See, even me too. I just always thought Snoke was just being a creeper, and and then because because at the end, they still connect. It has nothing to do with him, and I didn't even like him being the catalyst for it. Their connection was so pure and innocent in a way. So I just always like hated the idea but I did love the angst of Snoke trying to play it against them, right? Like once he kind of knows that, okay, they're somehow connected together, he's kind of like trying to worm his way in between them.
Yeah, exactly.
But but the confirmation about that they've always kind of been connected. I think a lot of theories were about dreams. I think there's a couple lines in The Force Awakens where it kind of hints towards, in the Force Awakens novelization, that kind of hints that they've maybe seen, oh, it is you. That's what Ben says. And
what girl?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's kind of like,
that would be like so good to dig into. Like I have like these daydreams about how like he could be in the Force and like daydreaming about her, and like it wouldn't necessarily be at a specific age.
Right.
Like he would be able to see like her whole life because there is no difference
in the Force. Yes.
In the Force, right? It would be so cool to do that.
Yeah. And I think the door is not shut. This is just another example of the door still being cracked open, and that there's both ways that you can go through it, because we can continue, because at least in my mind, I don't think we're going to get episode 10 for a while. It's going to take just because at least like 2 or 3 years of production, planning.
You and I were messaging about this episode and messaging about what is the likelihood of a follow-up story for this.
Right.
And we're like, how many years away?
Because they've already got so many things on the docket. We've got Kenobi, Andor, 3 or 4 movies that are already being planned. We know things get canceled, obviously, in Star Wars fandom. Even realistically, like an episode 10 would be way down the line. But in other materials like the comics, the books, even an animated kind of short Legos, you can kind of explore the past with these two characters. And I know it kind of sucks that at the end of the day, he still died, but I think both of us are kind of in agreement that hope is still there. There's no reason to not be excited about these crumbs that we're getting.
Yeah. I really don't feel the door is shut as Padme dying.
Right. Yes. And even then, that is a tragic romance. And right now, Reylo is a tragic romance, and we're hoping it won't be a tragic romance forever. But Anidala kind of is the tragic romance of Star Wars, right? So you kind of expect the comics to go through that, with Vader constantly looking for Padme. That's his loss and his regret. But Ben doesn't have any regrets. He has no regret. He was able to do, what Anakin couldn't do, and save the person that he loves. So there, all of those leftover feelings aren't there for them. So the only thing that could happen is something hopeful in the future.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If they wanted to continue these stories, it has to be able to move past it. And I just don't see Rey being like, and I'm going to just be dating on the,
No, I'm saying she's going to be celibate. Don't you know how the Jedi lived? She's following in Luke Skywalker's path, just full celibacy. No, and not just in terms of that. I don't know. It's just, it doesn't always have to just be romantic, though. Of course, that's what we want. But even their duality is just so interesting. It's something that deserves to be explored, because that's at the heart of Star Wars, the dark side, the light side, and the push and pull between the two. And they're literally the symbols of that. So it makes no sense for one half to be walking around fine and the other to be gone.
Come on, Hammy. Opposites are sexy.
Yes, they are. They are. Okay, full romance then. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
They already had a kiss, so it's fine.
There was some High Republic tie-ins with Into the Dark from this comic, and it makes sense because, Project Luminous cohort of Claudia Gray as well as Charles Soule were working together quite closely in the lead up to the High Republic. And so the place that is called Snoke's Garden, which is this creepy place that he meets Kylo when he first leaves the Jedi Temple, is actually the Amaxan space station in the High Republic book Into the Dark by Claudia Gray.
Yeah, this was a total surprise. None of us, I think, were expecting this at all. When we were reading High Republic, I think we were all kind of going into it just as a news that those connections wouldn't be there. So it was a wonderful surprise, and it is very creepy. And it was already creepy in the comic because it's like this. Yeah. It's this garden, and the way that Snoke is hugging Kylo, it's just horrible. It's horribly sad and depressing and just very creepy. And so then in Into the Dark, obviously this is hundreds of years earlier, that same aura is around the space station. And
the Amaxan was first introduced in Bloodline by Claudia Gray, and they had ties to the dark side as well. So it's really interesting that they're playing around with these concepts that the creators have created in other things, and then bringing them back and making them, I don't know, tie in.
Right. It felt very post The Last Jedi, where all of the all of the Last Jedi kind of novelizations and everything, they were all kind of tying in to the bigger story. Even if it, if we were getting Leia, Princess of Alderaan, it was, she goes to Crate and it connects to The Last Jedi. It just feels very similar to that after The Rise of Skywalker, at least in this other in this other content.
All right, let's briefly. No, it'll be fun because there's a lot. Look at Star Wars through a Lego window.
Yay! I love my Legos.
Yeah, Lego is of course considered non-canon, but in so many ways, views Star Wars in a more truthful way.
Yes,
which is hilarious.
It's very innocent, but also tongue in cheek. It's just perfect Star Wars. I love the Lego version, and yes, like MC said, it's not canon, but I think it's from the same creative house. So I think it's okay to kind of look at that and say, okay, this is how other creators under Lucasfilm are feeling. Maybe that's, I don't know if I would go that far, but at least to me, that's how it feels when I'm watching any of the Lego content. And
Leland Chi, who is one of the story group people who I've spoken with quite in depthly on the podcast before, this is his baby. Lego Star Wars is his baby. And he just, I don't know, it's done with such love, I guess, is the biggest thing.
Yeah, there's so much heart, and it's just endearing. And because it doesn't have the weight of the rest of the saga, because it's able to, it's for children, and it gets to be playful.
Yeah.
With even in its darkest moments, the darkest moments of the saga are just somehow cute and playful when it's through Lego.
They gave us Palpatine Demption.
Yes.
in Lego. Mm-hmm. And I died. We got Sheev Demption in Lego Star Wars.
Exactly. And you predicted that.
I was like, Palpatine Demption? What? Sheev Demption? They actually went for it? He's like, maybe it's been me this whole time, and he still died. It's fine.
To start with the Legos content after The Rise of Skywalker, the first one was the Lego Holiday Special. So this was pretty much, I believe, I'm almost 100% sure that this is the only post-Tross content that we've gotten in the timeline, where it is after The Rise of Skywalker. I don't think we've gotten anything else. We've gotten some Star Wars Adventures comics, but even those are between The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker. I think this is the only thing that is afterwards. For those who haven't seen it, it's Rey is kind of not sure of herself. It kind of confirms that she's kind of not sure about her journey as a Jedi and teaching Finn, which is really cute. I'm so glad they included that. Rose has a huge part. They're basically having a feast to celebrate. And so during that, what happens is that Rey ends up kind of going, it feels like the world between worlds. She goes through these portals and she gets transported throughout the Star Wars saga, and in an attempt to become comfortable teaching Finn about the Force.
Yeah. And there was a ton of nostalgia because she went and like ran into like different Skywalker, like Anakin and Luke, and she doesn't have any like interactions with any other women at all in it.
Yeah, that was the one part that I didn't like about it.
Yeah.
Coming off The Rise of Skywalker, where we all felt it was very nostalgia heavy and it was looking to the past instead of the current character, when we finally get content with the new characters, they always seem to be needing to get thrown into the past and make those connections, and as if their value comes from that, when it's not that way. We find value in the characters as themselves. They don't need to be, you don't need to have Anakin and Luke on the screen with Rey for her to have meaning. Yeah. And I'm sure many Star Wars fans who maybe don't consider themselves as much sequel trilogy only fans, maybe they don't feel that way. Maybe they kind of, well, it's just part of Star Wars to always like connect. But to us, it feels a little too much, especially when she isn't interacting with Padme or Leia. Padme is kind of just silent in the back. Yeah. And same with Leia too. Rey doesn't talk to any of them. I don't even think she talks to Rose actually in the current timeline either.
Yeah.
Rose is there, of course, and she has speaking parts, which is great. Thank goodness. But yeah, I don't even think the two of them get to really interact as friends, which is something that we all wanted. We can kind of just see that, maybe the creators aren't thinking about that, why that's important for Rey to have interactions with other female characters. But yeah, that's the one nitpick that I have with the Lego Holiday Special. On the upside, we do get Ben. We get Kylo. Yeah. We don't get Ben Solo, but we get Kylo.
But she calls it Ben.
Yes, exactly. That's the significant part.
And then she's like, "What?"
Yeah, exactly. So she's so Rey's going through the portals, and she does land in the timeline with Kylo, and I believe he is Supreme Leader Kylo Ren during this. Yeah. Yes. And so, of course, she's this is after the Rise of Skywalker. So Rey's, you can tell clearly her Lego form is sad, which to me is the biggest crumb ever. It's not just that she's unsure about the Jedi path that she's taking, which we want for her. We want her to have her own journey and figuring that out. But it's also twofold in that she's also sad about Ben, that she still has like these mixed emotions and feelings about Ben. So it's exactly what we also think would be her next steps and her next journey, is that she's supposed to be going through both. She's supposed to be going on this Jedi journey, but then she's also like thinking about her other half. And yay.
Yeah. And like, to me, what's missing is like, she's trying to be like this new whatever leader or whatever new thing, but it's not her journey. It's the Skywalker journey. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And it can't, like, that can't last forever.
Right.
That's very heroine's journey. She has to find her own path.
Exactly. Even in this, like you said, it's going to the past. It's not looking to the future. But it at least gives us, if the entire saga is an hour, this is the last minute. So we get that last minute of post-Tross content. That's pretty much what it is. So there are a couple of interactions between Rey and Ben. Rey looks pretty much sad about Kylo because at first when she sees him, she thinks it's Ben, that he's Ben Solo. And she's like, oh, I finally get to see him again. But it's actually Kylo. He hasn't turned good again. So when she does see him, she's sad. Of course, the first thing Kylo does is propose to her. He like immediately is like, oh, join me. So this is what, like our fourth proposal.
Hey, I missed you.
Yeah, exactly.
It also sort of like somewhat confirms the SNL skit of the undercover boss with Randy. Yes. Like a little bit, like just he's like, sad about Rey.
Yeah, exactly. Because for those who don't know, there's the two SNL skits. The first one is I guess post The Force Awakens, it's as Matt, but then Randy, he falls into the timeline after The Last Jedi, and there's a part where he's like, he talks about Rey in the SNL skit about whether she'll join him, and like the other girl's like, I don't really care, and he's like, I care. I care. Yeah, exactly.
I care very much. Yeah, it's the best.
And then finally, at the end, once Rey realizes, of course, that this Kylo in the timeline, that he's still on the dark side, when she is about to close the portal, she says, goodbye, Ben. And she just looks so sad, so heartbroken and sad. And I did also kind of want to bring up that there are a lot of Reylo fanfics after The Rise of Skywalker that kind of are very similar, where she's going through the portals of the world between worlds and she sees different versions of Ben. And of course, eventually they do meet again in the right timeline, and they get the happy ever after. So it just almost seemed like a Reylo wrote this, really, with all the portals and everything.
Yeah. I was surprised at when it came out, and like how, I guess, thoughtful and like plugged into especially how Reylos view the story.
Yes, exactly. And I think and not just to talk about Rey and Kylo, it also felt true to Finn, Poe, and Rose. When she does get back after this journey, Rey feels a little more confident in teaching Finn. And really the lesson that Finn teaches Rey that helps her is that she doesn't need to be everything to everybody. Like, they're just friends. I can't even remember the exact quote that he says to her, but it's really super sweet. And he says that, they have each other, and that's all that really matters. And so it's just a really cute like lesson for her to learn, because obviously after being alone for so long, she maybe puts that pressure on herself when really now she has friends who are there for her. And so it's what Reylos say if people, about all of the characters, that they're there for Rey's journey and helping her along. So
and it's sort of like what we always wanted, which was that Rey was no longer alone.
Yep.
Right. And she still feels alone even though she's with people, which is hard.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. What's the next one?
Okay.
More Lego.
So the next one was a surprise. After the holiday special, I pretty much thought we weren't getting anything related to Ben or Kylo at all. Obviously we're always waiting for more Rey content, and it's not a surprise when we get it. But so we got Lego Terrifying Tales this past Halloween, which was a series of shorts. It was basically all about villains. I think it was Poe and another character, and they're the main focus of the story, but then it's all these different shorts. The one that included Ben Solo was called The Lost Boy, which, oh my gosh, if that's not, if that's that title alone, when that released, it had like a promo that was Ben Solo in the front with his cute little sunglasses, and then the Knights of Ren behind him. And it was like the Lost Boys movie. Yeah. Immediately, as soon as all of us saw that, we were, come on, he is the Lost Boy. He's just a baby boy. He's just a baby boy that's lost. The Lost Boys short is pretty much also about Ben Solo in the past. It's kind of similar to The Rise of Kylo Ren. It's kind of like an alternate universe to The Rise of Kylo Ren and kind of Ben's fall. We actually see the Jedi Temple and Luke training him. It's in a cute way. Like Ben is impatient because he thinks he's better than the other kids. And Luke's like, you got to be patient. And he's like, I don't want to be patient. They just have like a tiff, and then he runs into the Knights of Ren. Basically, by the end, he decides that he's going to be Kylo Ren. And that's pretty much what it is. So it's like an alternate version of The Rise of Kylo Ren. And the reason, again, this is significant is because I think most of us were pretty pessimistic coming after the Rise of Skywalker. Like, we never imagined getting more Ben content. And so to get another piece of Ben content is just kind of, okay, the creators are enjoying this character and wanting to explore it. And again, even though it's in the past, it doesn't mean that the future is shut out either.
Yeah, and he's also like a very popular character with kids, so it makes sense that they would bring it back for kids.
Exactly.
Too? Yeah.
Our final piece of Legos content was the Skywalker Saga video game, which just released. I haven't gotten a chance to play it, but many Reylos have put up clips and images of it, so I'll just run through them really quick. There's 2 hugs that are super cute. As we know, Lego is totally for children. So there's no kissing, nothing. Even Han and Leia don't kiss, and Anakin and Padme, they shake hands after their wedding. So there's no but Rey and Ben, they got 2 hugs, which is very significant if we're keeping track. So the first hug is after the throne room scene. Super cute. It's actually Rey who runs to Ben and like picks him up and gives him a hug. And then the second one is in place of
totally that.
I know, exactly. Super cute. And then after on Exegol, after what would be the kiss, they hug again. And then another part that I think is just super cute is the scene where Rey is healing Ben, and she keeps trying to leave, but he grabs her hand to he just has like the cutest puppy dog eyes, and she says the line about I did want to take your hand. I wanted to take Ben's hand. I did want to take your hand. I wanted to take Ben's hand. And so he keeps like grabbing her hand during that part while she's healing him. And it's just super cute. So again, it's just, there's no like erasing of Reylo. There's no erasing of the bond between them. It just feels that way with all of this content from the novelization, the Rise of Kylo Ren comic. Everything. There's
lots of cute scenes when they're in the Last Jedi scenes leading to the throne room. They go through like the entire ship,
the Star Destroyer,
and
right?
they're like snipping at each other, like in the cutest, like we're dating way.
Yes, exactly, like an old married couple. They're just like quipping with each other on their journey to the throne room.
There's lots of crumbs there.
Yes, definitely. And of course, also, you get to play as shirtless Kylo Ren.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. Yeah. All right, what's next, Tammy? We're leaving Lego.
I know. I said this was going to be a short episode, and now we're going through all of it. There's just a couple more things. One of the most recent things was Marvel released a one-shot comic for Life Day, November of this past year, November 2021. And it was mostly about Han and Chewie. But there's one part where Han finds an orb and he wants to take it to Chewie because he's like, oh, Chewie must be missing home. And this is from like his homeland. I believe that's what it is. And then at the same time, in the thought bubble, Han is thinking about his family and missing home.
Aww.
And I know it's really cute. And so there's an adorable little like picture. You can tell that he's thinking about Leia and he's thinking about baby Ben. And of course there's Ben, and Ben is like on his shoulders, like monkey style. And Leia's holding Ben's hand. And it's a super cute picture. So again, that was just this past winter. So that's cool. Again, the crumbs, they're piling up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Finally, I just wanted to talk about a little bit of future content that we are expecting next month. Star Wars number 25. We've only been getting teases. I think Charles Soule and Will Sliney know our side of fandom really well now. And they know that they have to drop crumbs and they can't spoil anything. But they both have tweeted about it. And there was an announcement on StarWars.com about the issue. There's not really many details yet. It seems to be multiple stories. I think that's what it is. Probably because it has a lot of people on the cover, but Ben, of course, is on the cover. And my guess is I'm thinking that Will Sliney is probably doing a variant cover. That would be my guess about Ben Solo. It just seems that way from the way that he's cryptically tweeting. So
yeah. So this will be out in June?
Yes. June of this year.
Awesome.
Yep.
Yep.
And I think probably from all the hints, it obviously is going to be in the past. It's going to be something with Kylo. On the cover is Kylo, but it's Kylo right after he falls. He's in his suspenders costume, like the costume that's kind of after planned or inspired by Han Solo's outfit. He's got like the black jacket and all of that. And so it's right after the rise of Kylo Ren. So maybe a continuation, maybe some more of that. Yeah.
Like he's now with the Knights of Ren. And, it's so funny because we always wanted like more Kylo and Knights of Ren stories.
Right. Before the rise of Skywalker, we wanted that.
But while they were like actually like hanging out and we didn't get that even with the rise of Kylo Ren. So
it was all the lead up, obviously, up until his fall. Yeah. So Lego and this are kind of providing that content.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens with that. That'll be cool.
I'm really excited.
Yeah. As far as the fandom goes, we mentioned it at the top of the recording that like when anything drops, like anything that we've just mentioned, or like the Sims game came out.
Oh yeah, we didn't even talk about that. That's obviously also non-canon. But
non-canon, but like the Sims, it didn't really have a storyline, so it's but you could get like the Star Wars pack and like build Kylo and Rey.
And many there's actually, I think Slima might run it or someone else might run it. There's a Reylo Sims Twitter account, and it just retweets all of everyone's gameplay, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so it's not like it's gone anywhere. It's just kind of like chilling out. But as an example, like today there was a tweet that had from the Star Wars official account, and it had Ben Solo, it had Ben Kenobi from like the trailer that we got for the Kenobi show that's going to be out later on this month, and Ben Quadraneros from the prequels, who's pod racer. Yeah. And it's like, how's everyone been doing or something like that?
But it's a pun with the word Ben, with the name Ben.
With Ben. Yeah. And it took less than an hour and it was over 5,000 likes.
Yeah.
It was huge.
And some could say, oh, that's because of Kenobi, but Ben's the big picture in that tweet. So Ben Solo is.
Yeah, he was the first one, right? And
front and center.
We now know who the culprit is, which is DJ.
Yeah.
DJ is like a fairly active Twitter person who's been working for Lucasfilm, and he has been doing social media in the past. I didn't realize that he had taken over the Star Wars account, and he's a good dude. Like, he really is. He's a good dude, and I'm happy he's being like super active.
Yeah, and, fun. For those who maybe aren't on Twitter,
he follows me. Oh, so when he tweets something that like I've been talking about, which was the Ben stuff, I was talking with Brad like about Ben today.
Some weird synchronicity going on there.
And then suddenly like this tweet happened and I was like, what is going on? Star Wars.
And for anyone who isn't as active on Twitter, after the rise of Skywalker, there was kind of like a lull in tweets, and honestly, even before the rise of Skywalker, usually in the promo leading up to a show, like I remember around The Last Jedi, there were a lot of fun tweets that that Justin, who was running the Twitter account before, he used to tweet a lot. There were cute, funny things about Rey and Kylo and Ben. After the rise of Skywalker, there was pretty much it was almost radio silence, maybe because of fan reaction. We don't really know.
Yeah.
They weren't really promoting a lot of the other shows, like let alone the sequel trilogy. It was kind of like, at least to me, it felt like they weren't tweeting as often. And right now it's all funny stuff. Like it's kind of like the way we post on Twitter. It's not just a promo. Okay, here's a link to the StarWars.com article and it's the next, whatever the next thing is that's coming. It's actually like fun interactions, which is what most franchises do on Twitter.
And like replying to people as well a little bit. Like there's a little bit of that. And it's more community building.
Yes, exactly.
Than I have seen since I started the podcast, honestly.
Really? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's been years. The Star Wars Twitter used to be way more active, but this is like before I started my podcast, and then they kind of pulled back after the Last Jedi. They were active until about 2 months after.
Right.
When I started my podcast, like they had the like, what's your favorite ship? And Reylo doesn't count tweet. And then like that was like everything after that was down. But it's just really nice to see them active and community building and like not being ashamed of this.
Right. Exactly. And that tweet is like a perfect example because it's crossing the saga. It's not just about like,
my jam.
Right. Not just let's get hyped about the prequels. Let's get hyped about the original trilogy. It's, it's about both. So it's, I don't know. At least it's something that all of us have been craving from Star Wars.
Yeah. Yeah. And like Star Wars being fun, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Is just joy. It should just be joy, right?
Definitely.
Yeah. All right. So, okay, where are we now? What do we do now?
Exactly. So we've talked about everything that's released since the rise of Skywalker. And now I guess we can kind of move into a little bit of the future, theorizing a little bit about what could happen. I wanted to talk a little bit about the dyad, because that was, at least for me and many other Reylos, a lot of speculation after the rise of Skywalker. I know some people don't really like the concept and kind of they feel that Rey and Ben, and I understand too, that they don't need a title, that they already had the Force bond. For me, I would argue, again, I theorize that this probably came from the story group, not the creators of TROS. And so to me, it's an added layer to the relationship. It's not discounting the romance. It's not discounting the emotions that were there. Those are all on, between the two of them. And at the end, when Ben does sacrifice himself, it's not about the dyad. They're not talking about the dyad. The two of them, they're not talking at all because there's no dialogue. It's not really about that. It's about their relationship, and that him saving her wouldn't happen without their actual emotional bond. But what the dyad does do is it adds more layers to their Force bond. And so it's just, at least I think for both of us, interesting to talk about because of the Force, and we like the Force and all of that stuff. It's just the other layer to their relationship.
Yeah, exactly.
So I just wanted to bring up one thing that the Girls with Sabers, they have a podcast and a YouTube channel where they talk all the time about Reylo. So if you haven't watched them or listened to their episodes, you should go listen to them. But I think it was last year, they actually contacted the Joseph Campbell Foundation to find out if there were any other instances of the dyad. After the rise of Skywalker, there was a documentary from Lucasfilm. I forgot what it's called. Is it called the Skywalker Saga? Legacy? I think that's what it's called. Skywalker Legacy. It came with the Rise of Skywalker when you buy it. Basically, in there, Terrio is talking about the dyad, and it's only one brief reference, but he says that
he says the mythical dyad.
Yeah, the mythical dyad that Joseph Campbell discussed or something. It was just like a really brief, like short thing. And so Girls with Sabers, what they did was they reached out to the Joseph Campbell Foundation to say, okay, and many of us had looked. We had all kind of like trolled the internet to see, okay, what is the dyad? What's going on? And I had written an article for What the Force where I kind of just talked about the one brief mention that we had from Campbell.
Yeah, and it was actually in his like talking about his life and talking about marriage.
Yes. So it's in the hero's journey. So it's a video of him talking about it. And he refers to the dyad as two people make sacrifices to be in a marriage.
Yeah. But he was talking about his own life, like, and being married. Like, that's really important, I think.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. Definitely. In my article, I go into it more in detail.
Sacrifice to the marriage.
Yes, exactly. In my article on whattheforce.ca, you can read more in detailed uses of the dyad, because it's seen in like psychology, sociology, and mathematics and chemistry and all of that stuff. But at least in this instance, the way that it's used is about sacrifices for marriage and two people coming together. And in sociology, it was kind of the same thing when you mention a dyad. It's about a relationship between two people, usually spouses.
Yeah.
And so that was the only instance, that was the only quote that we kind of had from Campbell. And so Girls with Sabers was able to find even more information about that. And so I just thought that was kind of cool that we were able to find a little bit more.
Yeah. And one of the primary things that they found is that dyad had two different spellings, and it was often used interchangeably. One dyad, D-Y-A-D, was as a pair, right? And that's the one that Campbell used. And they also had another version, which was DUAD, which is a couple or a pair. And it has mathematical sort of connotations as well. And they're synonyms, right? It denotes a strong relationship.
Yes.
Either way.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yes.
And in that same kind of area where the person from the forums on Joseph Campbell Foundation.com, I'm assuming, in that forum, when they were talking about it, they gave reference to other dual relationships. When I had originally talked about it before we knew this quote, I had kind of referenced, obviously, because I'm Hindu, gods and goddesses having relationships and them also being a dyad. Yeah. And so this also, they confirmed that, where it's Vishnu and his consort. So those are just examples of like mythic versions of the dyad. Yeah. And again, it just confirms, because Rey and Kylo, going back to in canon, they have the Force bond, and we've seen Force bonds kind of in legends before, and we've seen some of those skills and powers, I guess you could say. But with the dyad, it kind of elevates their status to almost mythic and godlike. The way that Ben and Rey interact, the way that their abilities in the Force, the way they're able to connect to each other and to the Force, it's just something that we've never seen before. And so it's kind of when that term is used that way by Campbell, it's interesting to see it come back in canon that way.
And they also refer to how a dyad is related to the yin and the yang of the world, right? The natural world, the light and the dark, and how they're always in balance and circling each other and make a whole unit, right?
Yes.
That was also kind of some of their outcomes as well, which, I mean, that it's not stuff that we didn't know, but it's still nice to like have it confirmed.
Right.
Again.
No, exactly. Because I think, especially in the Reylo fandom, when we're discussing all of this, we talk about all of these theories, but no one really believes us. Rey and Ben as yin and yang has been talked about since The Force Awakens. Since I think, since probably the night of The Force Awakens release, I think there was a Reylo online probably talking about it. And fics were written that week about the Force bond between them. And so,
well, my friend Troy, who designed the logo for What the Force.
Yes.
He did that yin and yang, like Rey and Kylo, that was on like the red carpet for The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
Like this has been in the air since before The Last Jedi.
Yes, exactly. And so that's why it's kind of nice to have this confirmation, because Terrio mentioned that, they got the term from Campbell. So we know that there's a direct link, and that it's not just us coming up with ideas about the future. It's that it's rooted in mythology. And so a creator who goes into that, because I'm thinking my other conspiracy theory is that I bet people at Skywalker Ranch have a lot more access to Campbell's like documents than we do. And so they would probably I'm sure they have a whole file called Dyad, and it's got all of the information. And so a creator would be able to take that in the future and kind of run with it and bring it back into canon the way that they want.
Well, what they super duper do have is George Lucas's treatment of what he wanted for the sequel trilogy originally, which probably has some sort of version of something he talked about with Campbell.
Yes.
Because Campbell was working quite heavily with him to discuss these things. So, yeah.
Exactly.
There's no question in my mind. Let's do a quick recap before we kind of move on to like fandom and like where we're at now. All the doors are still open. Nothing's locked or sealed away. It's as fundamental as the yin and the yang of a galaxy, which is literally the Force in Star Wars. They keep on poking at it.
Exactly. I was going to say, related to the keep on poking at it, every other character is also being poked at. So I don't know why Ben Solo would be the exception. If we've got Kenobi coming back, I know some of it's in the past, but Boba coming back, like if it's every single character, but not Ben Solo, that seems a little bit weird.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of like Will and the right creator being like, yes, this is how it should happen, and I don't think that they will regret having all the money in their pockets and making their Star Wars land worthwhile.
Yes, exactly.
All right, so on to merch. We have had ridiculously little merch for Reylo.
Yeah, I'd say not even Reylo. It's across the board sequel trilogy content pretty much as soon as The Rise of Skywalker was over. And I kind of expected that going into The Rise of Skywalker because the merch was not great going into it.
No.
It obviously was because of the release schedule. The Last Jedi merch was just amazing in comparison. And that's just because they finished the movie on time. There were no reshoots, like et cetera, et cetera. So because Tross was on such a crunch, the merch was really haphazardly thrown together. Poe was called a Jedi on like a piece on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
There was this symbol of the snake and Rey's lightsaber put together, which is
it sort of makes
yes, it makes sense with the healing, but that symbol never shows up.
Yeah.
The Sith troopers, they're there in The Rise of Skywalker, but they covered the merch leading up to The Rise of Skywalker. Yeah. It was the new, they have a new Sith symbol that was everywhere on the merch going into The Rise of Skywalker. And again, because of the way the movie, shook out, it was so insignificant in comparison.
Yeah. To me, it's because the movie was not even locked until like 2 weeks before it was shown.
Right.
So it's just, they didn't really know what they had. And merchandisers and like the brand people were like, well, we got to give them something. Mm-hmm. Whereas The Last Jedi was completely locked as a film over 8 months before it was shown. So they had lots of time to define the brand that they were going for, the publicity, the merch. Mm-hmm. And that's why we have such great TLJ merch.
Yes. And I think it was even slated after TLJ. We got the throne room as Lego set.
Yeah.
We were well fed that year after The Last Jedi was released. It is minimal, but there are a few pieces of merch that I just wanted to shout out. There is, of course, the infamous Ben Solo Funko Pop. And it's funny because if you look on StarWars.com, even to this day, the announcement for the Ben Solo Funko Pop, it's something like continuously demanded by the fans.
Yeah.
Basically, everyone who likes Ben Solo was adding.
I bought 2.
Yeah. They were, well, I know I submitted the form because Funko has a form online where you can request a new Funko for them to design. And so I must have submitted that at least like 5 times on my own. So I can't even imagine like other fans, how many times they've submitted it. And then of course we were always adding the official Funko on Twitter, any kind of Star Wars thing or non-Star Wars it would release. Everyone would be like, well, where's the Ben Solo Funko Pop? And so finally
they released it and then he sold out like multiple times.
Exactly. It was a crazy like rush to get them. I will say kind of related to that, the Black Series figures, we just really haven't gotten any of the sequel trilogy characters. We haven't gotten, it's not just Rey and Kylo. It's just kind of sad. I don't know. We haven't gotten Finn in his Tross outfit. I think Poe also, obviously Rose. And so it's just kind of sad that especially the Black Series, like you would think we would get, I think the last one might've been Dark Rey. I think that might be the last one from the sequel trilogy. Yeah. So it's just kind of like, I really would love like a Ben Solo Black Series. Yeah. Well, anything from the sequel trilogy.
And we did also get the card, the Topps.
Yes.
Ben Solo card as well.
And it's funny because I think Topps has like, they shut down their Star Wars affiliation website. So all of those screenshots, I think they're pretty much done with releasing Star Wars stuff.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm not sure what the situation was. I tried to Google it and it could very well, I think possibly most likely has to do with the pandemic and their sales or what, and not specifically that Star Wars wasn't doing well, but I think they probably had to end licensing for some certain things. I tried to look as much as I could, but I really didn't see any articles about it. And so before, what was nice about Topps, not just the actual physical cards that you would get and the digital cards we would get online, was they have access to all of the alternate shot from the movies. Right. And so they were on a release schedule. So after each sequel trilogy movie would release, they would get with Lucasfilm. I know this because I listened to an interview with one of the person who works at Top. And so he was saying that they get with Lucasfilm and they kind of go through the alternate shots and say when in the marketing strategy they're allowed to like release those alternate shots. And so I know that it's again very crumbs, but like when you get another shot of like the throne room scene. It's really exciting. I don't know, to have like a different angle or a different camera shot. I don't know. It's kind of exciting.
All we want is the fireman carry behind the scenes.
Exactly. So around after the rise of Skywalker, we did get a bunch of like, there's really beautiful shots of Rey, but all of that is gone. It's not on their website. So all we have are like these kind of not great versions, basically pixelated versions. That's pretty much all I have on my phone of that. So it's kind of sad. So I hope maybe they'll get the licensing back and they'll be able to release all those alternate shots again. Sorry, that was a long tangent, but
no. I mean, it's important to me.
Yeah.
I've never owned a Topps Star Wars card before, and I own 5 of the Ben Solos.
You know, same. I never bought the physical card except that one.
All right. Loungefly released a bag and a wallet.
Yes.
And it was very expensive.
I got the wallet because I could not afford the bag. No, I'm kidding. It's really cute. It's the little chibi Rain Ben. It's in Tross and they have a heart. There's like a heart kind of embroidered around them and it's super cute. So we got that. And then I think we've gotten multiple just Rey and Kylo by themselves from Loungefly bags and stuff. Another big campaign that happened was with Rock Love Jewelry. They do really high-end jewelry for franchises. So they've done a lot of Star Wars stuff. They'll do little crystals that are supposed to be kyber crystals on necklaces. And so they did something awesome. I think the marketing person for Rock Love, I think she confirmed it. She confirmed she's a Reylo. So they did this beautiful photo shoot. Yeah. And I believe they're dating in real life, the 2 models that they chose, but they were dressed up kind of like in
like Dark and Rey.
Yeah, like Kylo and Rey, but it's like Disney bounding versions, kind of like So it wasn't full cosplay, but you could obviously tell who the characters were, and they each were showcasing the jewelry, and they were kind of like, you know, obviously holding each other, and it was just and they were very interactive again on Twitter with all of us. They were we were supporting them, and then they were like kind of replying back to all of us.
Yeah, and they were showing us like they showed some behind the scenes shots and other things like that.
Once they saw how like popular it was, how active we all were and appreciative, they released alternate versions of the photo shoots and stuff.
It was awesome. There has been some statues that came out, but I mean they're really expensive and they're very detailed.
Yeah, they're very realistic looking. Yeah. The statues are Kylo and Rey when they're fighting on Kef Bir with the water. It's really beautiful, actually, because the statue includes the water kind of rushing up around them. And of course, like Rey, you know, she's going in for the kill, but then Ben has his hand out. He's literally just holding his saber to the side, and his hand is out. And so if you get the pair, she's trying to kill him, and then he's like proposing again. My
hand.
Yeah,
proposing in statue form.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
So yeah, so though it's been limited, it is still nice, along with all of the canon crumbs that we've been getting, that we also get some. And merch.
Again, Reylos show up to be like, wow, that's a really amazing bag. Probably to purchase it. Ben Solo Funko. Yeah, they show up. It's crazy.
Yeah.
You're like, I haven't seen you in months. And there they are.
Yep, exactly. Everyone comes out of the woodwork.
But like the fandom is just sort of like quieter in general. But what's really, really interesting is that it's supporting itself in its creative pursuits. It's like we built Reylo, but it wasn't just on the concept of like Rey and Ben being together. It was on this like metatextual idea that like love can kind of conquer differences.
Exactly.
And so when others kind of put stuff out in the universe, so other creators or Reylos in general are creating things, we support each other in those interests.
Yes,
which is really cool.
I have been in other fandoms before, but this is kind of, at least to me, it feels very unique. I think a lot of it probably is because we had such a separation from the wider fandom. And so it kind of consolidated all of us into one area where we all kind of have an understanding about like what we think about books and movies and shows and the message. And it's not just about the physical content. It's about the themes that they're supposed to be portraying. And it's so like you said, the metaphysical layer to everything, I think we all kind of connected through that. And so we have an understanding that, okay, if I show a Reylo, like, hey, I'm into this movie, automatically you get at least 5 or 10 other Reylos being like, okay, cool, it's on my watch list, I'm going to go for it. You just kind of trust their judgment and recommendation. And so it's been kind of nice, like you said, self-sustaining, because really after the Rise of Skywalker, with the way that we were all kind of sad and heartbroken, I really thought, okay, that's it. We're not going to be interacting, but it's kind of just continued in this way. And it's really nice. And it's, I don't know, I really appreciate it every day when I go on Twitter. So
exactly. And part of that is just like the fandom itself transformed into like taking on other stuffs. And I know they built out a lot of like canon compliant fics, like fic writers were still going at it. They still are. There's still fics out there. There's still Reylo fics happening. And like Gwendy, good friends of both of us, actually did Reylo animated, of course, and she's actually had it voice acted, etc. And that was just from a need. And like the cool thing about focusing on the themes associated with Reylo and not just like the story is that there's a constant desire to revisit the core of it because it speaks to our psychology.
Exactly. That's really what it is. I was going to say that, never mind. Sorry. Keep going, MC.
Okay. So like it speaks to our psychology. And so like even After Blossom, who's done amazing stuff, like is still working on Reylo fan art and doing amazing things like Monstertober, which is like a book with Reylo but Reylo is monsters, and that's like out there and available. Like you can still find stuff. You can still find unofficial merch or art or creators that are still willing to take it on.
And the cool thing is, like you said, it transcends just the Reylo aspect of it. When they are creating any kind of, if you've read any Reylo fan fiction that isn't canon, that's from an alternate universe, somehow we're able to take those concepts about Reylo, the connection that they have for each other, the loneliness, the trauma that they've both been through, all of that kind of transcends into other media really well. So whether it's fics, whether it's art, whether it's, other movies or books, we're able to kind of like see that and understand why another Reylo would connect with it. It's really cool. I don't know. I guess if you haven't been on that side, you don't really see it, but we call it like the Reylo to Reylo brain. Like we all have one brain cell. We basically have one brain cell. So if something happens, like if there's a new movie announced and then it has some little inkling of like a yin and yang or the red string of fate or something is in it, all of us will be there and be like, oh, it's Reylo. And it's not about Kylo and Rey at all. It's about this like belief in the connection between two people and something more humanistic than just these two Star Wars characters.
Yeah, and it goes into like all of the meta about Reylo that like me and other Reylos have done all the way along, like that, we are see the shadow version in the other side, and we see ourselves as perceivers of this story in both Rey and Kylo.
Yes.
Like, and when they are together, they complete us as viewers, right? They say like, you can be a whole person and you can overcome these things. And so it's so deeply psychological that like, it's no wonder that we are getting literal like fanfics that are written by some of our top fanfic writers being transformed from AUs into actual published works.
Yes. It's so exciting. And they're doing well.
They're doing well. Like, Ali Hazelwood, The Love Hypothesis, New York Times bestseller.
And not just for like 1 week. It was on the New York Times bestseller for like something like 24 weeks. I think that's what someone was saying. Just the other day, I think yesterday or the day before, Go Hex Yourself by Jessica Clare released. That's also Reylo fanfic that was made into an original work. And then next year, my girl Thea, she has the Hurricane Wars, her trilogy. It's going to be about enemies to lovers set in a Southeast Asian inspired world filled with magic. And I know
cool.
We're so excited. And so that also was like probably one of the, if not the most popular Reylo fic.
Yes, it was the most. We did an article on disasterism.
Yes. And so, so that was probably the most popular Reylo fic, and it's being turned into a trilogy now, a trilogy of books.
That's just amazing. Congratulations, Thea.
I know.
And, we keep track of Reylo authors because as a community, we want to support them in their creations. So like Slimo keeps a list on Goodreads written by Reylos, and that's constantly updated. So it not only includes fan
fiction,
future works and fan fiction that's been continued on, but also like known Reylos that have written published works that we can also say, hey, these people understand these themes that speak to our psychology. And so like that's like one of the most important things that like is that we get this like thing that's resonating with us psychologically, and we want to seek it out more. And so we as a fandom, as Reylos, support each other in finding things that speak to us in this way.
Exactly. And I think, like I said, we are all also supposed to be Star Wars fans. And so if we're not finding that through Star Wars, we're going and finding it in other places. And it's not a bad thing. I think many of us will return to Star Wars when we get that connection back again.
If the themes indicated that that's what it was going on.
Yes, exactly.
People would be back to explore it, because
if they come back for a tweet, they'll come back for a TV show or a movie.
Yeah,
exactly.
And the important thing is for us to show hey, this is the story that is being told and how it relates to the things that speak to us psychologically.
And kind of related to that, since The Rise of Skywalker, there have been a few examples. Killing Eve is the most recent example. There were examples where other media kind of went down the same path as The Rise of Skywalker. It's not about just, okay, they're separating the romantic partners. It's not, sorry, spoilers for Killing Eve for everyone. But it's not just about the separation of the romantic partners, but it's this kind of pessimism that kind of seeps into the work at the end. And we're not sure if that's coming from the creators, why that is being felt, and why they feel like they can't give people a happy ending anymore. I'm sure how that has to do with the real world. But what I think the crazy thing to me is that I think if they had given us the ending that we wanted, maybe Reylo fandom would not be as robust and active as it is right now. Because I think by killing Ben Solo and leaving this open wound, it's kind of forced us to look elsewhere for things to heal us and to bring us together. And it's really, I appreciate it, at least because the variety of content that's out there in all of the streaming services, if you're watching something, guarantee there's another Reylo. Well, we're just too big of a fandom now to not find someone else that also is watching that or reading a book that you're reading and connecting with.
Reylo is top 3 non-organized groups on the internet. It's there, right? We're huge. And you kind of, there's a Reylo kind of whispery network, hey, what are you guys watching? Oh, you're watching that. Maybe I'll check it out, right? And maybe they don't do it right away, but they end up catching up with things. And so this is actually what they call the Reylo to BTS or Reylo to K-pop pipeline that happens post-Tross.
That's a big pipeline.
Yeah, it's huge, right? Because myself, I was into BTS before Tross, but tons of Reylos were looking for this sort of psychological story or something that was speaking to them in a femgaze way, much the way that Reylo, especially in The Last Jedi, was. And K-pop was there to answer.
Yes, exactly. and
right?
and it's not just
didn't make them feel ashamed or stupid for being fans.
No, exactly.
Rewarded them.
Yes, exactly. You're rewarded. And not just in K-pop, but also with K-dramas, you're always rewarded.
K-dramas.
That's a big thing. Obviously, MC knows all about that, but
not always rewarded, but more often than not. And they're more written and directed from a femgaze perspective because of the, it's over 80% of K-dramas are written by women. So you're just more likely to get stories that are going to speak to our psychology as women. And K-pop is built to be consumed mostly by women. So it's going to have more of a femgaze story. But BTS specifically ties into Jungian psychology. And so pulls that out in its storytelling through its music. So Reylos are really smart and like can sense when somebody's telling them the story they want to have told to them, because they've been reading metas and they've been listening to podcasts and they know what they're looking for now.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And so like She-Ra came out right after Tross, and it healed me personally. Like a couple of months out, the last season, enemies to lovers, and transcendent, wonderful, healing the galaxy ending. Mm-hmm. And
everything that we hoped
awesome.
Everything we hoped the Rise of Skywalker was going to be.
Yes,
and
exactly.
I kind of related to She-Ra, I think it's also important to kind of mention the female characters in all of these. It's not just, that it's from a femme gaze perspective, but in a lot of these works and movies and shows, we just know that we're seeing full 3-dimensional female characters. Mm-hmm. And this isn't a Star Wars hate episode. It's hard to get attached to female characters in Star Wars because we don't know that there's no guarantee that we're going to see their happy ending.
Yeah.
Or that they're going to be included to the extent, like we mentioned with the Lego series, Rey isn't speaking to any other female character. It seems so rare when it doesn't need to be that way. You should have a little bit of more care and thoughtfulness when you're coming up with these ideas and themes and stories.
Yes, exactly. Not all female characters, but certainly some awesome ones. Cobra Kai, which is so Star Wars, but also handles all of the themes that we talk about with Reylo, and we talk about healing, and we talk about these things, and not a one-to-one analog, but also just handles the subject matter exceptionally well. It's on its 4th season, and I think they're only planning on having 5 seasons, maybe 6. But I trust these creators so much because it is such a great show. It handles legacy in a way that Star Wars would dream of handling legacy, like actually making it valuable, but also not overshadowing the story of the younger generation.
Exactly.
Yeah. The next one on my list is The Great, which is enemies to lovers. We still don't know how it ends. I mean, it's it's not true storytelling because they kind of just fudge things, and it doesn't seem to be going the way that history is. It's all about Catherine the Great and her taking over Russia. But yeah, it's amazing, and it understands things and is very adult. So it's also kind of like a nice treat from sanitized fiction.
Right. Kind of related to that. Not really, but not related in any way. But it made me think of Portrait of a Lady on Fire. That was one of my favorites after The Rise of Skywalker that I watched. Just, so good. Obviously, that is full-fledged femme gaze storytelling to its core. Yeah. And that healed me after The Rise of Skywalker.
The next thing that I just finished, and I just finished covering, was F4 Thailand, which is a Hanayori Dango manga remake, which has been remade 6 times now. And it is like the best version of a live action version of this story. It's enemies to lovers. It's she actually calls it out in the final scene. She's like, whoever thought that my nemesis would be the one that I love. It's great. It's great. But there's so much symbolism, and it handles atonement and redemption with such love. Most Reylos that were also part of the F4 fandom while it was watching just like wished this for Rey and Ben, right? Yep. So it's very healing to actually see it done so well. The other thing was Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yeah, I just went and saw that yesterday. If it's not on your list, I think it's getting a lot of buzz and a lot of hype right now. It released about I think it went wide last weekend, so it could really use the support if you have some extra cash and want to go see a totally original movie. I went yesterday and it was amazing. I don't even want to spoil it or describe what it is, but it's about everything. So as the title suggests, it was totally healing. I was I didn't expect to be tearing up in the theater. I should know by now that I'm always like, I never used to, but I think after The Rise of Skywalker, I started tearing up at everything. And so it just provides healing, and it's about generational trauma and coping with that. It deals with so many important themes and messages, and about humanity and existentialism. And it specifically head on talks about the nihilism that we're kind of like going around talking
all facing.
Yes, exactly. It's about facing that and saying, okay, and I'm not spoiling anything by talking about this, but it's about facing that nihilism and realizing like, oh, okay, if that is what is the truth of the world, that we are alone, that it's just ourselves, then the only choice you have to be is to be kind to other people in the world.
Yeah.
Because nothing else matters.
Because everyone else is in pain.
Yes. Yeah. Your job, how much money you make, none of the, okay, you might have this shame that like, and regret in your life that, okay, I didn't become this other occupation or whatever it is, but none of that really matters, because if none of it matters, then the only thing that does is the relationships that you have with other people, with your family, with your friends, your loved ones, etc. So it's just, I can't recommend it enough. Go watch it. It will heal you.
I agree. And, oh my goodness. I wasn't expecting to really talk about it at all, but you talked about it so wonderfully. So I agree. Okay. I would say it's like a culmination. It felt like the thesis statement of why I do what the Force, like it's bizarre. It felt like me on that movie screen, like literally seek joy and be kind. And that's the point of what the Force, and they made it into a movie. And so it feels amazing. And I don't want to say anything more than that.
Exactly. It's a true journey that you have to go on. Everything builds from the first scene. You think it can't get any crazier, and it just keeps getting crazier and crazier. And they add more things and more elements. And then it all leads to like a pinnacle of, then you understand
amazingness.
Yeah. Then you understand everything. And you're like, oh, that's where we were going with all of this.
Yeah. Yeah. and it's joy. It's joy to watch. So enjoy. Go watch it. Love it as much as we did. If you listen to What the Force, then you will love this. Yes. Which you are. So
I was going to give 2 more quick shout outs. Also, right after The Rise of Skywalker, I also went deeply into Little Women, Greta Gerwig's version. That was also amazing. So that's another recommendation. And then, of course, Knives Out and Knives Out 2 coming soon.
Knives Out. Knives Out 2.
MC and I might be covering that as well. So get excited. I want
get
to.
Hyped. Yeah, I want to, because I have a lot of thoughts on that movie, and I want to see the next one. Okay, so what was the point of going into all this? Which is, it's exactly what I said in my Trust deep dive way back when, 2.5 years ago, which was, there's going to be stories that are going to come along and they're going to heal you. And if you can't find the story that's going to heal you, write it. And that's what Reylos have done. They've found the stories that healed them, and they keep on seeking them because they know they're important. These stories are so important to us as humans.
I think outside of Reylo as well, I think there is this yearning for that kind of content, because everything is so easy to get to, right? We have all of these streaming services at the tip of our fingertips, and yet sometimes it feels like there isn't anything original that we can hold on to. And so I think outside of Star Wars and outside of Reylo, I think everybody is kind of, when something new is going on, like Everything Everywhere All at Once, like that kind of became the thing that was buzzed about, and that everybody was kind of like, oh, okay, it really speaks to me. And so it's not just about, Rey and Kylo. It's about reaching into yourself and finding connection with media and creativity through that, and being able to express these emotions through that.
And it's about the themes of like, how do you redeem? Because Reylo is not just about the love story. It's about the redemption, and it's about never giving up on somebody who has gone down a dark path, right? And so any story that kind of like plugs into it's never too late, I'm here for.
Because obviously that speaks to our own, because we're all going through our own redemption in life, right? So we want something that speaks to us about that.
Constant redemption. We make mistakes, and how do we turn back from those? Yeah. So I guess, what do we hope for in the future, Hammy?
Well, the biggest hope is that we get an episode 10 where all of the sequel trilogy characters come back, including Ben Solo, and we have a grand adventure, and we heal all of the wounds in the galaxy once and for all, and we put an end to this thing.
And they put a cake topper on top of the cake, and it's Rey and Ben kissing as the sun sets behind them, and then the galaxy is forever healed and no more future after that, right? Because we want it to end after them.
Yes.
Right? The galaxy is healed. How likely is that? I've talked about this with Joe Brennan, he's awesome. He did that really long, in-depth dig into Reylo. It came out last year, and it was awesome.
It's on his YouTube channel if you want to check it out.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll link to it in the liner notes. And then I had him on the podcast just to talk about, like, how do you heal Star Wars? Well, having a good community manager for the Twitter account certainly helps.
That's a good start.
But, like, how far away are we from doing this? Well, it's really whenever Star Wars decides to do that. But also, it takes time and the right actors.
And the creators. I mean, obviously that an episode 10 would be what we all want. And so that could be, 10 years down the road post Tross. We're already past 2.5. So, only 7.5 more to go. But for sure, we can get content with the sequel trilogy characters, whether it's on Disney Plus. It could be live action, it could be cartoons, it could be anything. They could do something like that. But I don't know if they're ready to do post Rise of Skywalker content yet. I think they need to think about what they want to say. I hope they do. I hope they really think about it. I hope they have something new and inventive to say with these characters. That's not, now that we've cleared the deck, the past is gone. We've cleared it.
Yeah.
It's over. We've let it die. As Kylo wanted.
Everyone died.
Yes, everyone is literally dead. So please move forward with the characters into something brand new and that we've never seen before. Yeah. So I think definitely revisiting these characters is not even a question. We're already doing that in all of this content. It's a matter of like moving forward. And I think, we just have to kind of be patient and, and think it will happen at some point. I will also say just, this is anecdotal, but I've also seen a large turnaround about Ben himself too. And I think maybe the sequel trilogy characters in general, from
they needed some rest.
Yes, exactly. I think just like the prequels where we were very much in this first like 1.5 years, it was all about hating the sequels. None of us felt that way. We never hated the characters ever during any of this. It was never about that. It was about the story and what the creators were trying to say. We were just questioning that, whether they had intent behind their decisions. And we didn't feel they did in some instances. It was never about the not loving the characters and not loving the story and what Lucasfilm was doing. So I hope, just like as the prequels are getting their resurgence or their renaissance, whatever you want to call it these days, that the sequel trilogy will also, get that chance too.
Exactly. Checking in with our sequel trilogy main characters, or the actors that play them.
Yes.
They certainly could bring them back in an animated form and cast different actors like they did with Lego. Like the Lego The Skywalker Saga, they had different actors play them. I think it was Matt Wood played Kylo Ren again.
Yeah. Even in Resistance, Oscar did Poe, but it was a different actor playing.
It was Matt Wood.
Yeah, it was Matt Wood playing Kylo.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to run through our faves really quick and just talk about them for a sentence each, maybe. Yeah. So we've got Daisy. She just recently came back onto Instagram, so everyone was super excited about that.
Everyone freaked the hell out because it was random. She was like getting some sort of treatment done. And her stylist convinced her to come back onto Instagram so she could tag her in the photo.
Yep, that was what it was. And there was a little bit of speculation, maybe for about a half a day or a day, where everyone was like, is it really her? Is it not? But then, like her team was tagging her using that
and
handle.
She was quickly verified after that. Yeah,
pretty much after. And of course, for anyone who doesn't know the history of it, Daisy, John, and Kelly were all on social media before. And obviously fandom we don't know 100% why each of them. Obviously, Kelly wrote an article, a New York Times article about how she felt about social media and the fandom and the harassment that she received. But for the others, we don't really know exactly if that was the reason, but I think it can be pretty much assumed that it was harassment and it was obviously affecting their mental health. John is also sadly not on Twitter anymore either. So it was just really exciting. It was kind of like a little bit of hope and I don't know, at least on our side of fandom, it was pure happiness that Daisy was back.
Yeah, because we like seeing her and we like seeing what she's posting, and she hasn't locked down her tags yet, so people are tagging tons of Reylo art to her.
And continuing with Daisy, she has The Marsh King's Daughter coming out soon. She also has another movie called Sometimes I Think About Dying. So she's keeping busy. Obviously, Adam Driver, he stays busy. He had 3 movies come out last year: Annette, House of Gucci, Last Duel, and I think he has like 2 or 3 more. C5 he's already shot. Another one is the Ferrari movies. He's shooting soon, I think next month.
Hardest working man in Hollywood.
I know, exactly. And then of course we can't forget the campaign that broke the internet is when he turned into a centaur for Burberry. So
he was shirtless, he ran, he swam, and then turned into a centaur. Rode a horse for a bit. It was great.
Yes.
Yeah, he's doing fine.
John, like I mentioned, I'm sad that he's no longer on Twitter, but he was in I believe it's an Amazon mini series called Small Axe that got rave reviews. And then he also have, which I'm super excited about, The Woman King. It's a movie that's coming out, I think, next year, or maybe it's the year after. But it's set in Africa. That's got an all-star cast. It's just going to be, I think it's going to be really cool. So I'm excited about that for him. Oscar has also, like Adam, been staying super busy. The 2 big ones were Dune and Moon Knight. Yeah.
Moon Knight is still being produced at this time, or coming out at this time that we're recording. But it's solid. It's very, very good. And he's exceptional in it.
Yeah. And then finally, Sweet Kelly, her and Daisy both, I think they had a couple of audiobooks that released that they were, that they did the voice acting on. And then of course her big movie was Raya, which I think, cause I like to keep track of the ratings on everything. And I think Raya was like the #1 like thing on Disney Plus for like weeks and weeks after it released. So it was just super successful. And I'm so happy for her to be a Disney princess. It's great.
Yeah, she is. It's great. And she was super active, and it was great to see her at the Oscars in her beautiful outfit. And she's planning on being at Celebration. So I'm going to get my Where's Rose book signed.
Yay. That's going to be so exciting. Yeah. It was just announced today that her and Billy Lord are both going to be at Celebration. So yeah, I don't know. It just is nice that we all are keeping up with the actors afterwards, and we're going to keep that flame alive, because if anything's proof, spoilers for the Kenobi series, Hayden Christensen coming back for that is obviously hope for any sequel trilogy fan out there who is worried.
Yeah, no, and we want to see them back, I think, in some way. But it has to be the right story, and we want to make sure that it creates satisfaction out of it. But I think that, like, to summarize everything, because like this was a lot. This was way more than I think we were expecting to talk about, because we made like an outline, and then you filled in like so much stuff.
I thought we would just be here for like 30 minutes. There's because
like, what's going on with Reylo? But actually there's a lot, and it's like the fandom hasn't disappeared. They're just chilling, and they're exploring other things. And really, like, Reylo is this community, and it isn't going away. I don't even think it's slowing down, which is also bizarre. It's just getting fed, because what we're plugging into is the themes and the story and the psychology behind what Reylo always was.
Exactly. That's how I feel. That's the reason I've stayed active, that MC has stayed active, that everyone else that we interact with online has stayed active. It's not, there's just this hope for the future. And then we're also, I don't know, by using other media and other movies, books, like we explained, we're able to kind of find that connection to the themes. And it's like we're taking everything that we learned while being at Reylo and applying it to those things. It just feels really good. And it's just having this like level of understanding with each other that's really cool and unique. And I don't think I could have ever experienced it from another fandom. So I'm really grateful.
Yeah, I'm grateful too, because like Reylo was what convinced me. Well, TLJ and Reylo was what convinced me to become a podcaster and explore story with such a deeper lens, and allowed me to, do that with F4 Thailand or with other things that I've covered in like What the Fiction. And it's not just about Star Wars. It's about finding the soul and the truth behind what drove us, with why this was important to us. And then seeing that in other stories makes it so much bigger than just Reylo.
Definitely. I can't wait to do this at in another 2.5 years at the 5-year mark. Another Reylo check-in.
Yes, a Reylo check-in. And like, I mean, who knows what will be announced by then.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Well, thank you for hanging out with us, listeners. I'm so happy that you're still with us, Reylos. And Hammy, thank you so much for coming on the show and like revisiting Reylo with me.
No, thank you for I love you, MC. Thank you for giving me this chance to like talk about Reylo, because I do it all day every day anyway. And I don't know, it's kind of it's a good check-in for me personally on a personal level too, to just kind of remind myself of everything that all of the crumbs that we've been getting and compiling and putting together. So
now it's a small hill of crumbs.
Exactly.
Eventually it will be a mountain again.
Yes.
All right. Take care, everyone. Cheers.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to What the Force. I'm Marie-Claire Gould, your host. Our intro and outro is orchestral music by Christy Carew for What the Force. We have a Patreon at patreon.com/whattheforce. We would like to thank all our patrons, especially those who love What the Force, Melody, Night Huntress, In Wild Space, Felicia, How Rude, Anna Perez, Neil, Joe Allen D, Christian Luca, Josh Johnson, Scott C, and Susan. Make sure you like and subscribe on YouTube or leave a 5-star review on iTunes or other pod apps. It helps others find the show. Check out our other channel on YouTube, What the Fiction. You can connect with us on Twitter at WT Force Show, What the Force Podcast on Facebook, or our website, whattheforce.ca, and our Discord. Links are in the liner notes. Feel free to reach out and start a conversation. Cheers.